Hello Hambini fans and welcome to another episode of the Shite and Sarcasm Engineering Show. Mainly shite, little bit of sarcasm, but lots of reaming. In today's episode, this Winspace SLC frame. Before we go any further, those people in the comments that work for bicycle companies in the West, this frame was bought anonymously. So a big thanks to one of my viewers who bought the frame and then sent it in here for a new bottom bracket and also me to check it out. In the scope of delivery, well, this is what I was sent. Anyway, I got the frame, the seat post and the forks. The frame is a 49 centimeter frame. The brakes on it are rim brake and they are direct mount. So we've got direct mount rear, which is in the kind of, I would say, the standard place on the stays there. On some bikes like my T1500, it's underneath. I think this is a better place, to be honest. This is the lightweight frame and it's completely carbon. There's apart from the aluminium inserts, that's all. Seat post is a standard affair. It is a 27.2mm seat post. Again, it's carbon there and then aluminium up top. The fork is also carbon. It's got its crown race fitted already. And again, this is a direct mount on the top of the forks. For weights, the fork is 395-ish grams when it's uncut. The seat post and its associated gubbins is 190 grams. Frame is about 910 grams. This fork is well made as a whole. When I put the camera down the bottom of it, there's nothing there really, absolutely, nothing of mention. The scan didn't really pick up anything. The only real comment I could probably say, and I'm fishing, is the riv nuts, if that's the right word, the inserts for the brake mounts could be a little neater. There's a flash line along here. Again, it's something that visually doesn't look the most appealing, but to be honest, it's covered by the bike. The crown race fits really quite well, and the tube along it is straight and concentric. It's a lot better than many forks that I've seen because the inner and outer are concentric and round. The mounts have been either taped off or cleaned up afterwards. Very, very clean. There might be the smallest speck of carbon dangling out, but I'm really being picky. So this is the seat post system. It's a 2-bolt fit. It's completely different to the T1500, which uses like a Ritchie WCS system. So I actually prefer this. I think this is a superior design, but it has less setback. No issues with this. You can see just from the style of the cap head screws that have been used that it is of Chinese origin. It's not really an abusive comment. It's just a comment. They just tend to have subtly different features on there, but again, there's no problem with it. It seems to function correctly, and they've put some dummy inserts in so that it's okay for transit purposes. It's 27.2mm, which is a standard size, so you can get an aftermarket one. Internally, the carbon is very, very clean. There's nothing in there. It's very, very clean. This is the lower headset bearing seat. So what we're really looking for here is on the conical bit or the tapered bit. That's where the bearing sits. It's round and the wall thickness is very uniform all the way around. There's no appreciable, well, there's no voids in there, none that you can see. It's perhaps a little bit rough there. There's nothing that a little bit of sandpaper, glass paper wouldn't get rid of. I mean, you could leave it as it is. Again, I'm being picky. This is the upper headset bearing. It's a smaller bearing seat compared to the lower one. Again, this is very clean. The two diameters are concentric and they're round. Conical seat, again, is fine. Looking through there, I mean, it's perfect. There's hardly anything of note. Scan showed uniform thickness of carbon all the way down. Generally speaking, I would say this is a very well made frame. This is the seat post where it comes through. The clamp goes around there. Now the chap didn't send me it, but I'm not really too fussed about it. It's just basically a semi-ring, isn't it? Stress razor relief hole has been drilled there and through the other side. There's a bit of leftover fibre from where the drill hole is. Again, I'm being picky. It's nothing that you could probably just pick that off with your finger. Bottle holder mounts, again, they were fine. There's nothing really to say about them. They're not touching, and the front mech hanger isn't doing a BMC and having its precision Swiss wanketeering engineering. They're well apart. There's not likely to be a stress razor there. Very, very clean on both sets of bottle holder bolts. This is the rear mech hanger. Again, this is very clean. There's nothing really to say about it. It's the split hanger design like the T1500 has. So it clamps on both sides of the carbon. Now, some people say that it's more likely to break the carbon, but I think it's horses for courses really. I think you're basically going to snap this before you snap anything else. The exit for either the cable or if you're using Di2 comes out of here. The cable routing for this bike is basically internal from the top of the down tube down to here or over to the bottom bracket. This is where the QR goes through. As you can see, it's been masked off or faced off afterwards. I suspect that's masked and then been cleaned up with a machining tool afterwards, but again, it's flat and square with the rest of it. This is a bottom bracket on the bike. It's a BB86 unit, so it's 86.5 millimeters from one side to the other side, and nominally the hole through the center of it is 41 millimeters. This design is slightly different to the T1500 because you can see it straight all the way through and there's loads of space inside. Now to check this, what I've got one of my famous gauges. So one side is 40.95, which is the minimum size of Shimano tolerance, and the other side is 41. So I've forgotten to label this, but I'm pretty sure that's the 41 side. We'll try this side first. And I could actually push a bit further, but I haven't because it'll make it too difficult to get out. So that's gone through. So that's the 40.95 side. See, it's quite a tight fit. And that is the 41 side. You see that won't go through in at all. It's actually rocking. So that's a perfect fit. Now I did measure this and it comes out at 40.97, which is bang in the middle of the tolerance. So just to show you the gauge, this is a vernier. I've only put it up here because it's a digital scale so you can see it. Put it up to there. It's 41.01. Okay, there's a little bit on there. It's not perfectly accurate. And then the other side is 40.95. So that's the test gauge. So for the bottom bracket install, the first thing to do is to check the sizes. So you can use a 3-point ball mic or one of those gauges. The gauges are probably a bit more idiot proof. So that's coming out at 40.97 to 40.98. The limit value is 40.95 to 41. Do the same thing on the other side. Then I would spray the frame hole with activator. So I'm using 7471. There are a few others that you can get. And wipe off any excess. Then we need to set up the bottom bracket, the press and all that kind of good stuff. So the bottom bracket and the, in my case it's a metal press because I do a load of these, but if you're doing it and you've bought one from me then it'll be plastic. And pop that through so it gets lined up. Then back that out a little bit so the receiver goes on. Like that. And then we need to thread the handle on. Once you've done all that faffing, you'll end up with something that looks a little bit like this, and then you just start to tighten up. And it will go in. Once it gets about 15-20 mil in, it'll go slack. And we'll just need to go and push it through to the other side. So it's gone slack. Now when you get to this point and it's gone slack, I always recommend you put retaining compound in, just as a belt and braces job. So I'm using Loctite 641. Just run that down the inside of there and then on that surface there. That's probably a little bit too much that I'll put on, you don't need very much. But again, that's a belt and braces job. Really, this bottom bracket didn't need it, but it's a complete job. Just taking up the slack on the press and you can just continue to press it in. You just need to be a bit careful when you're getting towards the end to make sure that it's aligned properly. And then that's it. Now I can take this thing apart. Then you need to get a feeler gauge, or if you haven't got a feeler gauge, a sheet of paper, thin paper, and just run it round to make sure that it's, you haven't got a gap somewhere. This bottom bracket is about as perfect as you can get, as perfect as I've seen. But you can see that's what you're looking for. Basically no gap. So you want it fully faced, fully flat up against the frame. Then just put the caps in and we're good to go. And if you're wondering what a trash Shimano crankset is good for, it's good for spin tests.
Right, it is that time of the show again. If you are new here, this is where PowerPoint meets a 5-year-old. It's diabolical, really. I started doing these a few years ago and people just got off on it, so I just carried on. Today, we have a stupid headline, which is the Wankat Pace SLC version 2 gets creamed by Hambini aged 5. First of all, some Hambini shilling. Check me out on Patreon. Some people who are Patreoners know that you get discounts to buy bearings and bottom brackets and all that kind of stuff. And it is way better value than the $3 Ugandan shillings that you have to pay to view some of that. And you also get additional data. Hambini.com. I will have merch shortly. So Belinda with the big hair from Manchester is going to sort me out with some merch. Right, Instacrap, remember to have a look on that. Face crap, meta, whatever the bollocks it's called, have a look on that as well. This frame was bought by a random punter, which I have put in the flowchart here, in the middle, from Winspace, and they are based here. Not in the South China Sea, I might add, somewhere on the east coast of China called Xiamen. And they sent the frame to the random punter, who has a very generic name. I don't mean that derogatorily, but they're not really going to know it was me. In fact, it wasn't me. The guy just bought the frame and then decided he needed a bottom bracket, so he sent it to me, and then we reviewed it. So it is about as random as you can get. And then it came to Hambini headquarters. So this is my really, really crappy map of the world with Mercator projection. Oh, fucking hell. Masturbator projection. In fact, if I could project that far, I'll be well happy. Yeah, okay, somewhere in the middle of Texas. That'll do. And then it came in for review. So this is the Winspace website, and it is the product page for the SLC2. Now on here it says it's available in rim brake and disc brake, and also some colours. So super light black was the only option as of now. If you go down through the little list of things here, it doesn't actually list black as a colour, because if you go to colour here, it's metallic blue or metallic red, custom paint available on request. Maybe I need to look at that. Components, which is spelt wrong. It's me being dyslexic, I can spot that a mile off. Anyway, if you come along here, one thing I would say is if you're going to buy this bike, make sure you check out the geometry, because a medium is 490 for the seat tube, but it gives you, I mean, various top tube lengths ends up being 535. I usually use 550 or 560, but just have a check, because sometimes the geometry may not be what you were expecting. And then we have some of their marketing blurbage: super light, climber, anti-gravity, Now, some of the interesting stuff that you get to is down here, but it's sort of encapsulated in the marketing. So, super stack technology by FEM simulation. I think that's finite element analysis, but you know, I don't know. With stuff about the layers being layered at different orientations to give you the strength. And then in here, I think this is a sort of a kind of a guess as to vibration damping versus stiffer sections. So they've stiffened up around the bottom of the bracket area, headset, and then these bits, which are the centres of the tubes, are left fairly slack. So I think that's what that means. And then this is their speed rating. So over 5.5 kilometres with a 10% grade, it's 32 seconds faster. Now this is the bit that really interested me, which was around the way the frame is made. So I will show you some of the pictures shortly, but the insides of it were really, really, spot on, and that's really to do with the EPS. None of that bag stuff, so you haven't got the void generation, and then you have a look at the rest of it. Blah blah blah. More stuff. I forgot to check the pen was working. Let's make sure the pen is working, because the pen has had some repairs. It needed some repairs. It went to go and see a urologist, no less, for some repairs at age 5. No, anyway, the urologist did prescribe me some Viagra to stop me weeing on my shoes. But anyway, we come on to the inside of the frame. I mean, really, it's immaculate. For a pre-preg frame, that is about as good as you're going to get. There's no wrinkles, no voids. It's just very, very well made. There's another shot. You've got some residue here, but I mean, it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. I think that's one of the stays. I can't quite remember. Not sure. But anyway, you've got another shot there. Yeah, I think that's the drive side stay, and that's the internal routing of the gear cable. I mean, you look at it; it's just immaculate. There's nothing there. I mean, the rest of it is it's fine, really. There's another shot of it. Build comments. Now, one thing I would say is the T1500, which I have, is my personal bike. I would add that I paid for it. And this one almost looked like it's been made with completely two different engineers have made it. The internal way that it slots together, the lap joints, everything is just totally different. It looks like, a different bike, different engineer, different factory. Don't know. It's just completely different. The bottom bracket area has full thickness carbon fibre across the landings, which is quite unusual. If you take a look at a giant bike, it tends to have like an overlapping fillet, so it tends to taper, whereas this one is full thickness across the rest of it. The lower headset bearing is tapered, and it's a much bigger bearing than the top one. I think this one's 1.5 inches and the top one's 1.1 inches. But basically, you've got a conical seat. So if this is the head tube, it comes down like that, and then you've got this conical seat like that, and the bearing sits in there. So you've got the bearing that comes around like that. That is a crap drawing. That's absolutely shite. Anyway, basically on here you haven't got full contact all the way around. It's like a point contact. I don't know if that's been done on purpose or not. I've seen some of them where the seat, which is supposed to be at an angle, actually looks something like that. So you end up with a point contact on the radius, and it's. I mean, I've seen it on some bikes where if you have it excessively, the front fork will sort of clunk as you brake, and it tends to be on disc brake bikes. And I've seen some other viewers, and I think Pete Talk also mentioned it, that he has seen that happen. So it's not just a one-off. That's fairly widespread. On a disc brake bike, the braking forces have to go through, well, the non-drive side fork leg to be transmitted up. So you've got quite a big jolt. Whereas on a rim brake bike, the force is basically at the crown of the bearing. So you don't really get that sort of bending moment, let's say. So that's something to consider. Is it a showstopper? Not really. And is the guy going to have trouble with it? Don't think so. And is it me being picky? Absolutely. This is the Hambini scale of manufacturing excellence. So on the left, we have to sort of coordinate these with metaphorical diseases. So AIDS, chlamydia, gonaduria, and on the right, pen 15 like a horse. Pen 15, everyone will know what that means. And then we have some like items to put on there. So on the very left hand side, we have absolute crap. Who tried to sue me? And all of that stuff will be coming out shortly, much to their probable disgust. Right, Open Cycles, they also tried to sue me. I wonder what is a recurring theme on here. Anyway, Bowman, they tried to kill a load of people. And Flow Cycling Wheels. I mean, they're just another bunch of numbskulls. Ascent Wheels, they tried to kill me as well. KPS Wheels, another bunch of assassinators, this time from Australia. Crap. And then people will say I have my own prejudices, and to prove I haven't, Cannondale. Now I've moved them further to the right because as I write or draw this PowerPoint or do the PowerPoint, they have improved their manufacturing quite considerably in recent years. So the last 2-3 years, their bikes are much, much better than they used to be. And I have to give them credit for that. As much as I, like to roast them on my barbecue, that's it. Time is there, and I haven't really got much to say about that. If you want the epitome of manufacturing engineering on a bike, that is probably it. And that's to do with the process that they use, which is RTM. Resin transfer molding, and then Winspace, and I put Winspace there, and you're probably wondering, well, what is ahead of time? And the reason is because of the cost. So this frame on the Winspace website was $1,480. The time frame is considerably more than that, 2-3 times more than that. Is it 2-3 times the frame? No, in terms of quality and all that kind of stuff, it's just a nice to have. The Winspace will certainly get you by. Right, overall, this is a key statement, right? In cycling, price and quality do not correlate. So you could end up paying shed loads of money and end up with having absolute crap. And that quite frequently happens. At the other end of the spectrum, you could buy something from AliExpress and it be much better than the value that you paid for it. So you buy something off AliExpress, $50, might not be the best, but you only paid $50 for it and it sort of exceeded expectations. I tend to find that a lot in actually bicycle lights. AliExpress bicycle lights are pretty well the best that I've ever had. The frame itself is affordable and well made. Can't really say much else about it. Geometrically, very good. And then the final comment I would say, in terms of if you're doing this, is you do not fit a dub or a 30mm axle in this bottom bracket. Well, I wouldn't advise you to. I mean, you can do what you want. The landings are full length, so if it's slightly off on your axle, and SRAM axles are known to be not perfect, as are some of the 30mm axles, some of the FSA axles, we've had them on here. CNC machined allegedly and ended up with pits or ended up slightly oval or whatever like that. I would not recommend you go for that on here. This is a page on my website which explains why really fitting 30mm or dub axles into a BB86 or a BB92 frame is a bad idea, and it explains it in fairly detail fair detail, and there's something about the bearings and all that kind of stuff. On this particular frame, and frames that have this kind of characteristic, which is the full length bearing landing that's reinforced all the way around, you don't really want to go there. So I wouldn't recommend it. If you're going to buy the frame, that is something to consider. And that brings us to the end of this show. If you do have any questions or comments, remember to smash that like button, put your comments in the box below, and as always, keep banging your hairdresser.